It's the Fish Fry Friday for software developers. Code is spoken here. I want to give a warm welcome to everyone joining us on this beautiful Friday afternoon or evening or Saturday morning for some of us. What is going on in your world? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Can you see fish trying to escape their fate on the Fish Fry Friday? Hey, what's up, Laszlo? I just saw you. Speak of the devil. For those of you just joining us, we had earlier a first ever patron live stream. It was a blast. It was 20 minutes. It was supposed to be 10, but as usual, I had to have the Minnesota goodbye, which anyone from Minnesota or has Minnesota in-laws can tell you. Minnesota goodbye isn't 5 seconds, it's 20 minutes. At least 10. 20 if it's a good day. 20 if there's a lot of stuff to talk about or just a little bit. What are you developers up to? I am just ecstatic with everything right now. And I'm not even doing anything. I'm just sitting here in front of a fish screen as tropical fish swim about. We're gonna check in the Fish Fry Fridays for software developers. If you're new to it, we've been doing it for a few weeks now. Basically, there's a bunch of fish and tropical things squirming around behind me. And I'm sitting here and we talk about code, we talk about tech, we talk about web development and software development and anything else pertinent to the lives of web developers. It's a total melange, it's a grab bag, it's a miscellaneous gathering of the minds. Laszlo is here. Shout out to Laszlo, a patron supporter extraordinaire. Who else do we got? Randy Miller, Sammy Turner, Donovan. Some familiar faces for sure. Caitlin Frederick, happy Friday. You too, Caitlin, rock on. Jared, John B. Donovan says, we are underwater again. Indeed, it is true. King, what's up? Candace, hey, hello, Code Dragon. Too many videos on what language first and where to start. Yeah. You're saying there's too many on YouTube, Code Dragon? Talk to me. Too many videos on what language you should choose? I can agree with that statement. It's a perennial favorite among YouTubers because it performs so well in the algorithm. What language should I use? Top 5 languages for 2020. In reality, 99% of us aren't going to be learning 5 languages in 2020, let alone 3 or even 2. But they're fun videos to click on and they get people excited. I don't even know if that's what you're talking about, but that is what I immediately thought of. Because I have been tempted to do some of those videos. I probably have over the past couple of years, but I try not to follow what the algorithm is pumping. It's just not sustainable. That's not the route I want this channel to take. 19 people all up in the live stream. What's up, the other Gabe the 5th? Gabe, you're changing your username every day, man. The other Gabe, as long as you say Gabe the 5th somewhere, I know it's you. Yesterday it was like Gabe the 5th divided by pi times x. Andrew, how goes it? Hologram Nunchuck, happy Fish Friday. Yup, K2020 checking in. Hassan, how goes it? How goes it? Hassan says, do you think companies will be hiring soon? Yeah, Hassan, did you check out that video, the live we did, I think it was last week, about our company's, was it a hiring frenzy or a firing frenzy? I don't remember what I titled it, but basically we went through a list of companies that are definitely hiring right now. I interviewed a Twitter employee last week. Twitter is definitely hiring. Some companies, it's true, some companies are freezing right now. They're not hiring, but many are hiring. They're doing interviews remotely. I was watching this video the other day. It was made relatively recently. It was made in the past few weeks. And one of the people were like, yeah, no one's hiring right now. I'm like, that's just not true. I know many people in my immediate circle right now who are going to interviews to tech companies and startups and all different types of companies that are hiring software developers as we speak. The only difference is most of them are remote. But once society really opens back up, I think we're going to see even more. So yeah, it's all good. Laszlo, happy Team Manatee Day. You too, Laszlo. We gotta have like a secret like hand signal for manatees. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe just like the T-Rex arms to greet each other when we see each other online. Thanks, Paradoodly-Doo, for sharing that link. This was the video we did last week about the companies that are hiring right now and companies that are on a freeze. So today is the day. Today is Friday. Happy Friday, happy Saturday. Hassan says here in Egypt, there's no hiring at all. Is that because of what's going on right now, or is that like a consistent thing? Fill me in. I always love hearing what other people in different countries, what their hiring processes are. And here's a neat one. So yesterday, here's an example of different, the cultural differences in the development world. So yesterday we were talking about, yesterday's live stream was about recruiters and how developers should veer far away from recruiters, avoid them like the plague. Someone in the Discord, I think it was Cyn, C-Y-N, shared that in Japan, recruiters are actually a really helpful service. They help developers in the ways they should. They help developers like recruiters used to in the US before LinkedIn came along and ruined it for everyone. And also I was looking at the live chat yesterday, and Mr. Gilsteiner, who I was so excited to see him. He hasn't popped up, or at least I haven't seen his comments for quite some time. Maybe he's been commenting, they just get buried in the mix. But he's a longtime subscriber, and he's from outside the States. I don't remember where. I remember he's not US, he's not from North America, but he was saying in his area, in his country, the recruiters are actually really helpful. So it was interesting to see the cultural differences just from those two anecdotes of how much more helpful they are outside of North America. Because here in the States, when we hear recruiter, we say, oh Lord, and run the other way, because 99% of them, at least on LinkedIn, are blood-sucking used car salesmen. GTD says recruiters are a mix of good and bad. It depends on who you get. GTD, the landscape on LinkedIn, it's leaning towards bad. It's just leaning towards bad. If the problems really started flooding in when LinkedIn came to prominence and these recruiter tools were sale to anyone, and anyone could call themselves a recruiter. It is a mix. It is a mix indeed. But on LinkedIn, it is a desolate landscape. It is no man's land when it comes to software developers looking for recruiters. Wow, I didn't know that about recruiters in Japan, said Donovan. Yeah, I didn't either. Apparently, in some countries, they can help you. Who'd have thunk? Certainly not the case here in the States for a lot of us with online vetting of recruiters and likewise candidates. Vlazel says, we are in the last stage of hiring 2 new junior devs, and they will start remote until we go back to the office. Ooh, Vlazel, I'm curious. Being someone who started their job a few months ago, right? And having that experience in the office, because here's the thing with Laszlo, for those of you who don't know, Laszlo started a job a couple of months back as a web developer, his first job. He was going in person, and then his boss was like, you know, we're going to experiment. I think they were giving Laszlo like 1 day remote optional. I could be totally making that up, but now he's working from home remotely. Laszlo, do you think your 2 new hires are going to be able to handle completely remote first couple of weeks on the job? That's a big risk in my experience. I'm interested. You got to keep me updated with those devs. Hopefully they'll rock it. But remote as the first couple weeks on the job, ooh. And are you gonna have to manage them? Like, who do they go to when they have trouble? Laszlo, it might be time for another raise. I'm just saying. King says I need to get on Leak Code this weekend. Claudio Constantine Caraju. Sorry if I mispronounced that. I totally did. What's going on? Catch, Promise, or Async posing the question. Hey, hi. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name, but thank you for saying hi. Welcome. Rebecca, what's up? King says, my company wants everyone to start coming back to work in about 2 weeks. Developers, yeah, it's gonna get gruesome. IMHO, as far as people, I don't know. Just be careful. I'm not trying to instill panic. I'm just saying, be careful out there. Don't be sneezing in someone else's sniffle. You know what I mean? Andrew Weller says we hired someone remote and they're excellent. Were they juniors? What was their position, Andrew, if you're comfortable sharing that? Talk video. Hey, says thanks for your recruiters video. They suck. Yeah, and you know, we were talking yesterday too about recruiters who are actually good. The name recruiter has been so tarnished in this country that real recruiters, a lot of them aren't even calling themselves recruiters anymore. I used the example yesterday of talking to the Netflix recruiter who did not have recruiter anywhere in her profile. She's a tech lead at Netflix in one of their web departments. We talked a long time, had a great conversation. She was trying to discern if I might be a good candidate for the company or not, but nowhere was it mentioned she was a recruiter. Coder B, what is up? Tom PW, Candy's on Zoom. Candy's on Zoom. Come on and Zoom, 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 Zoom. Christopher Bathgate says 9 to 5 Zoom calls with the juniors. Yep. Tomas, howdy. Coder B says, I started a new job on Monday and will be in the office for setup, then work from home, but I have worked from home for 15 plus years. Definitely not a junior. Indeed. Andrew says, well, I guess they're not junior. They do have experience in what they're doing. I guess a fully green dev remote to start wouldn't go so well. Yeah, that is my experience and the experience of many other companies. And it's just I think it's the biggest reason why companies are so hesitant to hire juniors when it is a remote position. Juniors, their first couple weeks, their first couple months, they need someone there. And just the real-time correction and the real-time guidance just isn't there. Even if you're on Slack, the physical proximity is so important as juniors, in my opinion. Coder B says, it's in a food processing plant, pretty much whatever they need me to do that day. Rebecca had a comment up here. Let's see. Dr. Candace, what's up? Been getting slammed with recruiters messaging me. Yep. So it goes on LinkedIn in 2020. It's the new, LinkedIn is like the new Tinder or something. It's out of control. Rebecca says, so hey, I might just effing quit so you all can have my job. That story of my life. I feel you. Altic says, we got a lot of comments here. Rebecca says, I'm really sick of working from home and my motivation is below zero. I don't want to code at all right now and everyone is pushing me off. I took the afternoon off to sleep. Rebecca, I endorse that. I completely understand where you're coming from. I work from home. And it is, I mean, there's a lot of things that can fatigue you, especially when it comes to this career field. Sitting in front of a computer all day with the same environment can make anyone batty. Taking a nap is totally okay. Taking a break is totally okay. And getting outside. I would say getting outside is a big thing. Because now it's like, it's tough because even if you do work from home normally, at least you can go out to a coffee shop, you can go out to like a shared workspace. But not right now. So there are a lot of people going pretty batty with that. It's popping. 47 people in the chat right now for the Fish Fry Friday, where it's just a total freestyle. We do whatever we want and talk about whatever we want, so long as it pertains somehow to ones and zeros. K2020 says, I just need a company to hire me and let me sink or swim. Either way, I would learn. Yeah, that was what was shocking to me when my first day on the job. Well, the first day is always kind of a softball day because you're setting up paperwork, you're filling out the tax forms, you're like getting your workstation set up. I'd say that first week is pretty laid back, even if it's relatively laid back, even if it is crazy for you, compared to what you'll be doing in week 2. Week 2 is generally when you get to start exploring the code base, looking at things, doing things, and then that's when the learning really starts the first minute you're on the job. I mean, even if you just spend one day at a real company, it's going to make up for months that you coded on your own and doing projects on your own. It's a totally different world. And it really was like the company culture at my enterprise job was pretty run of the mill. It was a small company, and it wasn't anything too crazy, but just it's someone else's vision, it's someone else's process, it's someone else's code, it's someone else's ideas, and it's someone else's money. So going into that from freelancing was a complete culture shock. Like I said, even though the company culture was just kind of, it's pretty milquetoast, but it was just completely different because you're going through these, I mean, thousands of files, hundreds of projects. You've never laid eyes on them once in your life. And it's just, it can be really overwhelming. But the learning that takes place when you're doing that is just incomparable to when you're doing stuff on your own. And doing freelancing, now going back, after I was in enterprise and having started my own business, it's so much, it's also another different cultural thing as far as workplace culture, because I work from home, I work where I want, I set my own hours, I write my own code, I have my own visions, and I have my own people that I work with, I have my own contracts, and I have my own bills that I have to take care of. So my priorities have totally switched. But yeah, being a 9 to 5 is just, it's such an incomparable experience. And you see code in a whole different way, just even that first day. Code Zero says, definitely want to take a nap today. Rainy weather and problems with relatives. Ugh, hear you on that. Curtis Davis, what's going on? Agreed, physical proximity and goal dates important for junior devs. Tony PW, it's called a power nap. They're great for around 1:15 for an hour. See, my problem, like power naps in theory sound amazing. But once I'm in it, I mean, I'm done. You won't be seeing me for the rest of the afternoon. There is no wish. Oh, just 5 more minutes. Alarm goes up. Just 5 more minutes. Finally, you hit the swipe to like you hit the snooze on your phone like the 3rd time. It just gives up on you. So there will be no snoozing. There will be no power napping at RealTough headquarters, RealToughCandy headquarters anytime soon. Coder B says, I love working from home. Last 4 weeks, I've hardly left the house, been updating my skills. Yeah. See, before this whole world came to a grinding halt, I was doing the same thing I was doing that I'm doing right now. Nothing has changed. I work from home. I love it. I'm a highly sensitive person. So everything affects me. So when I'm in these different environments, at like a workplace or something, or even just like out grocery shopping or whatever, all of these things affect me. And honestly, they distract me from doing what I want to do with my life. So being at home in an environment that I am familiar with, I'm good. I'm good. I totally understand other people who are like, I am going crazy. I get it. But I'm just so used to it, and I get out too. So I think the exercise portion is important because I love getting outside and I love nature. And if I could live in nature, that would be even better. Lots of people here today. Great turnout. Developers, if you're tuning in, do me a quick favor. It only takes half a second. Hit that like button so that YouTube will continue to not blacklist me. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's go back to the comments. Who had some comments? Rebecca says, I walk every day. I'm stressed about family, got parents struggling with their business and a sister working with COVID patients. She intubates them. I'm just not in a good mindset. Yeah. Rebecca says about quitting. I'm not that serious about that, but I'm just fed up with everything. Yeah, if you're able, I know this might sound like, thanks, I'm cured type of advice. Like, if you're able to take just a complete break, just do it. Just take a complete break. Take some you time. Focus on you. I know that's easier said than done. And I know we've never met, but I do understand what you're saying. I do understand that overwhelming feeling, and it gets to be too much. Donovan says, I've also been working from home, and our work from home got extended for another 2 to 3 weeks. I missed my coworkers. So Donovan, developers, seriously, if you didn't see that interview with Donovan on Monday, your developer journey is incomplete. I'm sorry to tell you. Paradoodly-doo, could you please share that link we generated when Donovan came on the channel on Monday? We talked about his coding journey. He's 100% self-taught. He's self-employed. We talked about his various jobs. We talked about his volunteer work and some challenges he sees some pain points he sees in new developers. Oh my gosh, we talked about everything. Advice for new developers, lots of great stuff. Check out that video. Timestamps too if you don't have time to watch the whole thing. So Donovan, fill me in here. So you're working from home. How does that work? Like what? I mean, obviously it's gonna be a little more complex than the live chat allows you to share. But say so before the whole shutdown, you were working in person, and now it's like, okay, you're gonna work from home. So do you like SSH into something? Are you using Zoom? Like what really has changed, or what are some tools? What can you add about working from home? I'm always like throwing a million questions at you and then change the question. So I'll just stop talking and let you share. Sammy Turner says, I went out to do some shopping today. Really needed the exercise. Haven't had much since the you know what. Jeff Grinley, what is up? Tech Rally says, I'm loving your book recommendation, The E-Myth Revisited, 70 pages in, and I'm already mind blown. Tech Rally, check this out. I am so glad you developers can enjoy the background while I'm gone. Can you guys see this? If you are a business owner, or if you are an aspiring entrepreneur, or you are an entrepreneur, I cannot recommend this book enough. It's called The E-Myth Revisited. Tech Rally is on page 70, and that is the chapter Maturity in the Entrepreneurial Perspective. This book is absolutely mind-blowing and life-changing. Even as someone who already is in business, like it really made me reflect on what the heck I was doing with my life. And also too, I couldn't believe like, oh, so I'm not the only person doing this. Like this book has sold there's a million other people doing all these things that I'm doing wrong. Okay, I guess that's oddly comforting. I'm so glad, Tech Rally, you're enjoying this book. Yeah, this is my #1 recommendation for anyone interested in business, interested in leveling up their current business, or just doing some research before they start their business. Oh, so awesome. And this book is like 25 years old. Okay, it's totally timeless. It's not like, let's see, let me grab you a ticking time bomb of a book. Okay, here's an example of a tech book that's a ticking time bomb. Pro-MERN-Stack, full stack web app development with Mongo, Express, React, and Node. This was published in 2018, 2017. It is completely useless. I paid $44.99 for it. It was great while it lasted, but it is totally outdated and pretty worthless. Here's an example of a timeless book, The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. This book is so plentiful. You can get it on eBay or your favorite bookseller for like $1 or $2. So good. Yes, Tech Rally, thank you for letting me know. I give these recommendations to people, and the reason I do is because I believe in them, hence my recommendation. So when I hear that they're actually helpful for people, that's great. So thanks for letting me know. Let's see. Mustafa, what is up? Archie, Mustafa, I'll come back to that in a sec. I will come to that in a sec. Code Zero says, Donovan, I watched your video. Awesome. Yes, Donovan, I love that he comes on the channel so often and visits, and the blog too. He has so much wisdom and information to share and insights. Laszlo says, I'm glad to be remote. It is a struggle, but I would love if I can continue even a few days a week. Yeah, I mean, once your employer, this is the thing that's kind of like a slight silver lining to all that's going on, that when companies were forced to make a decision like, okay, I can be a totally insensitive, law-breaking company, or I can let my people work from home. Most companies chose the second option. So they got these people set up with work from home, not just in the tech industry, like banking, medical, all this stuff. Anything that involves a computer, you can do from home. There's a spoiler alert. You don't have to be in the office. Working central locations, can I just rearrange my sentence here? Working from a central location is it's old fashioned in my opinion. There are very few situations where you actually need to have the entire team under one roof nowadays. The exception would be with new employees, having that physical proximity. But so these companies were forced to have these employees work from home. And what are they seeing? People can actually do it. What are they seeing? People who are good workers in person tend to be good workers at home too. People who don't need supervision, a lot of supervision at work, tend to not need a lot of supervision at home. Now, some people have not done so well with it. Let's be honest here. It is for some people, actually for a large slice, at least for people in America, it is hard working from home when you have a family and when you have kids and when you have pre-existing obligations, when you have pets, because if you're on a call or on a live stream or something and you have children running around and pets, it's hard to, how do you manage working actual dedicated work with your family at home? Because a lot of families are stuck at home and your significant other, like, you know, walking across the screen and like mooning your team, like these things happen. But there's another set of people who are really enjoying it and where it is working well with their lifestyle. Yeah. And I think a lot of employers are I guess that's what was my original point, was that a lot of employers are seeing that people can work from home. And for a lot of people who have those long commutes, it's such a benefit. It shouldn't even be considered a benefit, work from home. It should be an option for people where it's viable for the company. And if that candidate has proven in the workplace that they don't need a lot of supervision, as long as the work gets done, who cares where you work? That's what I'm saying. Who cares? Rebecca's got some good comments today. I'm going to try and get to the feed here. 49 people up in the chat. Thanks for hitting the like, peeps. Appreciate that. Mustafa says, RTC, I'm sorry if my question is not related, but do you recommend someone advance the language 100% before jumping into the second one? Love the show. Thanks, Mustafa. My answer to that question is there's no such thing as learning a language 100%. Even the gurus, even the gods of JavaScript do not know JavaScript 100%. I would be comfortable with the language. And by comfortable, that means able to go into any given beginner or moderate code base and understanding at least 50, no, probably more, understanding the vast majority of what is being written in that code base. So if you know functions, if you know OOP, if you know what methods are, if you know something like, we're talking about JavaScript, if you know async await, if you know about promises, if you know ES6, if you know maybe even like for bonus points, like generators, that's a good sign. That's a good sign that you could jump into a code base and be like, okay, yes, I recognize this pattern. I recognize what this is doing. I recognize this anonymous. Why is this an anonymous function? Why is this an iffy? Why are we currying a bind? I mean, that's kind of a pretty good measurement that you're ready to check out a second language, because when you're learning your first language, it's not just the syntax, you're also learning how to program. So maybe I should refine my statement. Once you know how to program with your first language, I think you're ready for your second, because your second language is more a matter about syntax. There are certain features in different languages you generally don't see in other languages. Each language has its purpose. Some languages are better suited for other tasks. Some languages are suited better for certain tasks than others. For example, JavaScript is suited for the web. Some people are using other languages like Python. Python is suitable for the web, but it's not as fast as JavaScript. So maybe that's not a great example. But I'm getting off the deep end with that comment. Know how to program with your first language before you go to your second. If we take the example of JavaScript, know ES6. It doesn't have to be top to bottom, and know how to read documentation, because it's not just about just opening up a code base and saying, okay, yes, 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 it's all making sense. If something doesn't click right away, you should be able to know, you should be able to find out why something isn't making sense. You should be able to go to the docs. You should be able to read the comments made about the code. If hopefully that project maintainer has left some paper trails or some sort of hieroglyphics to tell you what code does, if it's a particularly complex piece of code. Know where to go for answers. That's another big component. There is no such thing as knowing a language 100%, in my opinion. But if you know how to program with it, and you can open up a code base and kind of put things together and say, okay, I see what they're doing there. I see why they're using a bind or a curry or what have you. So whatever method, weird esoteric JavaScript method they threw in the code base. I think you should be good to go for your second one. What's up, Zane Chandy? Reading Rambo, what's going on? Rebecca Erling, we are generally working at a central location, and we've been doing well remotely, but we have to use a VPN to get to our code repos, servers, etc. And we've been having issues sometimes connecting. Yeah, interesting. Thanks. I want to come back to that comment. Let's see, so many comments today. Thanks, everyone. Elizabeth Soto, what's up? Altix. Donovan with the super chat. Developers, shout out to Donovan. He has been making it absolutely fabulous in the live chat. Thank you for the super chat, Donovan. He says, working from home, we use a VPN for working and Slack for direct and or group-based communication, online video hangouts for meetings and presentations, and an app called Tuple for paired programming. Interesting. Okay, never heard of Tuple before. Paired programming virtually. VPN. Rebecca also mentioned they were having problems with the VPN, her VPN. I was having problems with my VPN. I was using one. Also, so I have been trying to, this is one of my rainy day projects. I've had it on the docket for like a year, was to set up my own VPN using my VPS server, or I guess that's redundant, using my VPS. I just never got around to it. So I was using a third-party VPN, and I was really kind of suspicious of it, and I wasn't having a good experience. Like, it would disconnect me just randomly. I know that's not uncommon, but it was becoming more of a pain. And with, what was that VPN company, Nordic? Was it Nord? NordVPN had real problems a couple months back. It was kind of almost borderline scandal with their VPN security issues. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna ditch it for now. I'm gonna ditch the third-party VPN, and maybe on one of these rainy days I'll get to it. But my wish list, my to-do projects, my fun projects that I want to do, I need a full-time employee just to like help me do them, because I have so many. So yeah, thanks Donovan for the super chat, appreciate it. Zane Chandy asks, hey, RealToughCandy, what kind of algorithm questions would you expect a web developer to get at his first interview? Thanks in advance and love your channel. That's a great question. So first of all, employers are so different when they ask interview questions. At some technical interviews, they're actually not giving you a code test. Part of the technical interview is doing a take-home project, or doing a take-home test. That's what the technical interview consists of. Other places like your Fangs, your Facebooks, your Amazons, your Netflix and your Googles, they're gonna be giving you most likely a technical interview that involves live coding, which often, if not always, involves data structures and algorithms. As a beginning, listen, I'm an employer, right? I employ someone currently. This person has been working for me for almost 2 months. No matter what the status, whether they're junior, senior, whoever they are, I'm not going to be giving them an algorithmic challenge, a live coding test. They are so flawed. Listen, the reason these companies give out these code challenges with the algorithms and data structures is because they can. They're hazing. They're hazing rituals. They're proxies for IQ tests. I don't believe in them. That said, as a junior, just your basic, know lists and know your arrays. No, arrays are just they're just a critical component. If you can manipulate, whether it doesn't matter what language it is, JavaScript, Python, Ruby, it doesn't matter. Focus a lot of your attention on dictionaries, lists, arrays. They're used everywhere, and that's one of them. Look, if your interviewer asks you to rotate a 2D matrix 90 degrees counterclockwise as a junior developer, and it's not at Google, you have a real problem, because that interviewer has no idea what they're asking of you, and they cannot map that to any practical skill that you might have. I would say as now this is where it gets interesting, because data structures and algorithm mathematics is code, okay? It's computer programming is applied mathematics. So data structure and algorithms are important in what we do. They're very critical. Don't get me wrong. But the questions asked at these interviews regarding data structures and algorithms are clown world, total bozo status, especially when it's not a highly respected company like Google. If your local podunk digital agency is asking you to do some work with heaps, or asking you about heaps, and you're interviewing for a PHP position to work on their WordPress site, you got to ask yourself what they're smoking, because that has nothing to do what you'll be doing on a daily basis. You will never use that information at a digital agency. You will never use that type of knowledge at a digital agency. Now, if you're a PhD holder working for Google, then maybe we would have an argument with that. If you're a PhD holder going for one of these things, then it's game on, because it's highly competitive. There's a good chance you will be working directly with algorithms. For most junior dev positions, that's just not the case. And let me be real right here. The vast majority of us are not going to be working in Silicon Valley. The majority of tech jobs are not in Silicon Valley. And that's not to dismiss Silicon Valley, but that's a culture. That's a specific culture. And there's a whole other world outside Silicon Valley that's getting a taste of software development, that's making money with it. And this whole idea of interviewing based on this book, if you can see it, it's probably a green screen moment right now. The whole idea of interviewing based on cracking the coding interview is a hazing ritual. So I'm sorry to get on such a tangent, but practically speaking, if you're a junior, my advice would be to focus more on arrays and actual data structures that you see in code bases, rather than 50-line like algebraic word problems that you need to solve in code, because that's not what we do. That's not what we do at our jobs. We never do that. Let's go to the comments. Ayo, it looks like we have something. Candice Leach just signed up. Shout out to Dr. Candice. Dr. Candice is a boss. She's making huge moves right now. Developers, listen. She's a Marine vet, US Marine veteran. She is a ninja, like legitimate ninja. She's been on these, what was the show, Candice? Ninja Warrior? You were on Ninja Warrior. She's doing everything. And she recently she recently unlocked this level. She has her PhD in computer science. Holy smokes. Every time I see that name, Candice Leach, I feel inspired. I feel like I need to go, I feel like going the extra mile, because Candice is just continuously making moves. Thank you for the membership. She is our newest YouTube channel member. Now she has a really cool piece of candy next to her name, and she gets a few more benefits. Welcome to Java Suite. She is on the Java Suite tier. That was awesome. Thanks, Candice. Elizabeth says, by the way, should I get that book? I'm a junior dev. I did a whole review on this, whether or not juniors should get this book. Let me be honest, I think it's a great book. I think it's a great book for what it promises, to give you questions that are asked at the FANGs. I think for multiple purposes, you could benefit from this book. But the thing I talked about in the video I did about cracking the coding interview is that if you get this book, it is really engaging. So number one, let's just point this out. This book, with the exception of chapter 12, is written in Java. So if you don't know Java, you're probably going to have a hard time understanding a lot of these code snippets. Chapter 12 is in C and C++. I think it's chapter 12. Chapter 12 is C and C++. I think it's an overall fascinating book. It's really well written, and she has a huge chapter on preparing for FANG level interviews. As a junior, however, this book is going to be a total time sink, and the bigger issue is that it's an opportunity cost. And what I mean by that is that if you buy this book and you end up reading it and spending time with it, that's an hour, that's 2 hours, that's 3 hours, that's 4 hours you could have used to build your portfolio, to study JavaScript, to figure out what's going on in that CSS file you've put on hold. I mean, for the typical junior developer, that book isn't going to be helpful, but I still think it's good, if that makes sense, for what it promises. So this book promises to show you how to crack the coding interview at the fangs, and for what it promises, it delivers. Same goes for Clement's Algo Expert, great platform. Would I recommend it to the typical junior developer who's not in Silicon Valley, who's not a 1%er? No, because of that opportunity cost. I think Clement's platform is amazing, and I do recommend it, but to certain sets of people. For the typical junior developer, cracking the coding interview is a waste of time. Elizabeth says, oh, but I'm not trying to get a job at a FANG company anytime soon. Yeah, so I would say, you know, if you're curious, read the excerpts on Amazon or something. It's like a $20, $25 book on paperback, but I think it's just going to be a time sink where you can spend more time learning JavaScript and improving your portfolio. So I hope that answer was helpful. Candace says, she's got a little piece of candy next to her name. Every time I'm on a video call with coworkers going over our projects, my cat loves to give us 2 cents on AI in healthcare. We love it, and it keeps us sane. Yes, pets are so great with that. They ground us, and they're so funny. Cats love computers, and they love interrupting us when we're on computers. I got a lot. Every time I was trying to code, Selena would just she would jump on my lap and just throw her body on my keyboard, and like her claws would attach to various keys. I'm like, Selena, you know I'm trying to work, right? Didn't care. Oh, she knew I was trying to work, but she was helping. And it's just so funny. It's just, cats especially are reminders to not take life so seriously and focus on the moment. They're so funny. Code Zero. Let's go to these comments. Code Zero says, well, I sort of disagree. When working with large data sets and complex transformations, you need to be able to apply optimal data structures and reduce time complexity. GTD says algos and data structures are more of a paying your due, sort of like hazing. Okay, and that's where he disagrees. Okay, cool. Let's see. I love the live chat. This is what I love about the live chat developers. People come from different perspectives, and it doesn't have to turn into an unmitigated dumpster fire. We can have civilized debates and disagreements and share knowledge, and feel free to disagree. I love it. I love it. I love it. The current internet culture is just like, oh, well, I'm packing up my toys and going home. You suck. I love the civilized interactions we have, not only in the YouTube channel, not only on YouTube, but also in the Discord. By the way, if you haven't joined the Discord yet, I understand. However, if you're looking to interact with developers of various backgrounds, of various interests, check out the RTC Discord. It's open to everyone, code newbies, even if you're not into code, you just want to hang out and see what's going on, seeing what this coding thing's all about. We have people who've been doing it for decades. We have people who have barely typed their first line of HTML. It's so fun. And during the Patreon live stream I did about an hour and a half ago, oh my gosh, just reminiscing about how fun it is. We have our official mascot, our unofficial mascot, which is soon going to be an official mascot of a neckbeard manatee. Manatees assemble, right, Laszlo? We need to have some sort of hand signal or something. But I don't want to step on any like gangland turf and be like, manatees assemble. Like, I don't want to start any type of YouTube war or anything. It has to be like explicitly manatee. I just don't want to get involved with the wrong crowd. Join team manatee. Exactly. Rebecca says, my cat loves to lay under my desk. Many times I don't know he's there and I kick him accidentally too much. Rebecca, they do, no, listen, they're trying to cash in on hugs and kisses when that happens. I'm pretty convinced cats who set themselves up in that fashion know that's going to happen. They want to make you feel, listen, they're playing 4D chess here. We're still on checkers as humans. They're on some 4D chess type thing where they know you're going to knock into them and they know you're going to feel bad. And what's going to happen? They're going to get that mackerel pate, that apologetic mackerel pate when you screw up. They're going to get kisses, pets, and hugs. So I'm just saying, they're 5 steps ahead of everything we do. Jeff has a question. What is your experience, RTC, working on sites like Fiverr and Upwork? Think it's that difficult to make $30,000 after 3 months? Jeff, are you trolling me? There's no way you're going to make $30,000 in 3 months on Fiverr and Upwork. No way. No way. If you live in a non-developing nation, stay away from Upwork and Fiverr. I don't want to sound like a broken record on that. So I'm going to give you the condensed version. People who look for clients on Fiverr and Upwork are looking for the cheapest price possible. And as a service provider, you are not a service provider in that context. You are a middleman to the lowest price possible. So you're in the way. You're actually in the way of the lowest price. So you've been relegated, delegated, and thrown to the back when it comes time for these people looking for the lowest price. They don't want you. They don't want your work. They want something done for the lowest price. You're a transactional middleman. And things get out of hand very quickly. Because with that level of client, that quality of client, they're going to want things done for free. They're going to want unlimited revisions. They're going to leave you a negative review. And if you don't already have a glowing 5-star Firewall 5 review on your Fiverr and Upwork profile, how are you going to get work? It is very difficult to start on Fiverr and Upwork. You're also working for 10. You're competing against people who are able to charge $3 and $4 an hour. Now, I don't know where you live, but if you live in North America, that's not a very good deal. There's no way you can make 30K in 3 months on Fiverr and Upwork. Maybe if you've been there for 5 years and the algorithm is just heaving, it's giving self on top of the world and throwing your name out there, maybe. But other than that, don't count on it. Avoid. If you need to know how to make money with freelance web development in a sustainable, maintainable way, check out my course, Freelance Newbie. My sales on that on Udemy have been astronomical this month. It's been one of my best months ever for that course. Parajulia, could you share that link, please? Also, it's a book. It's a companion book on Amazon. That's also, it was a #1 new release when it came out, and it's still really relevant. In fact, it's probably more relevant than ever. But as far as Fiverr and Upwork making money on it, forget it. Let's go back to the comments. Where's my thingy majiggy? Where'd you guys go? Fish Fry Friday. Let's see. Lazo says, you blood? Nah. You crip? Nah. I'm a manatee. See that? I just don't want to get involved in it. I just need something safe. Team manatee status. Coder B says, what is the Discord? Manatee merch. Oh my gosh, totally. King says, I live in Manatee County. Is that in Florida? I lived in Florida for a bit. I loved it. When I got out of the military, I took a year off and I lived in Florida. I drove a 1979 refinished, completely revamped 1979 Dodge B100 van. It was blue. It was a gloss blue. Oh man, it was custom, completely custom. It was a shaggin'. It was like the Scooby-Doo, like, what do they call them? Shaggin' wagon type vehicles. And there was there were diamond windows in the back. I had a place in the back. I had like a lounge area. It had antebellum columns, wooden antebellum style columns in the back. Oh my gosh. Cruising around Florida, driving around the States and living in Florida. It was a beach bum's fantasy. It was so awesome. going to like the hot springs and the different, what's that spring? It's in the Panhandle, it's Ponce de Leon Springs or something. They have these natural, beautiful springs in Florida and these natural areas that are so gorgeous. Growing up in the Midwest, we don't have that here. The people who live in Florida is such a grab bag anyway. It really is a pick and mix. There's a lot of flotsam and jetsam, if you get what I'm getting at. But there's also there's old money, there's new money, there's middle money, there's deep South. There are so many subcultures. There's Miami. There's the Hispanic flavors in Miami and the surrounding areas. Like there are so many pockets of different cultures in Florida. It's crazy. And so many geographical areas. Apalachicola, the Panhandle area. Oh my gosh, the Everglades. Freaking love Florida, dude. I love it. I guess Coding Phase is living there now. I wonder what he thinks of it coming from up north. Like us Northerners, when we get to Florida, we completely flip out because it's like living in another country or something. Like these places exist. The Gulf of Mexico waters, the rivers. There's actually a state park in Florida that has wild monkeys. This is a fun fact. Back in the 40s at this state park, they were filming Tarzan or some other monkey related movie, some jungle related movie, and they had these monkeys as extras. Well, when it came time to wrap up the production, they couldn't find all the monkeys. And so to this day, there's a colony of monkeys living at that park because the temperature completely aligns with what they need in a natural environment. So cool. Have I told you I love Florida? Florida meetup, AO. King says, I'm supposed to meet up with Coding Face in Tampa. Oh, is that where he is? Okay, I didn't know what part. Code Zero says, yeah, for us Floridians. Let's see, there is a curtains for the van windows, hologram nunchuck, you know it. You know I did. Yep, it was the works. RTC van vlog. Man, if I have a picture, I took a lot of selfies. Not selfies, but like just pictures of the van in various environments. Like, here's my van on the beach, ching. Here's my van in the parking lot, ching. It was a looker. I love that van. But as old school classics go, they don't last forever, and I was also broke, so I sold it. But if I have a picture, I have a few pictures of us in Louisiana. We were on the bayou exploring the New Orleans area, and then just, oh, the swamps of Louisiana, man. We got any Louisiana people here? Savage Scientists, let me hear you. I know we got some more Louisiana folks here. The Louisiana peeps. Yeah, Louisiana has its own culture too. That's what I just love about exploring these different areas is that, yeah, okay, it's America. There is like the American pop culture, but once you start exploring, there are so many pockets of different cultures. Like, I swear to God, when I get to Louisiana, I can't understand what half the people, I can't understand it to me. It's a totally different dialect. And I've had to ask people to slow down because I don't understand. And I feel like such a rube. But the accents are coming from up north. The accents are really thick to me. Okay, Jeff says, let me clarify. I'm from the US, but moving to Peru. I was wondering if I could make an average of $15 an hour in Peru after building my reputation after 3 months. Okay, Jeff, that changes things. That changes things. Yes, it's possible. It's very possible. I don't know the economics of Peru, but it could be something to explore. Definitely. You know, and don't ever be afraid to reach out to the locals and network that way, no matter where you are, whether you're visiting or moving or whatever, networking and going to meetups and meeting people in that physical area, more times than not, you're going to have some people interested. And all it takes is one person to say yes to you, and then you start getting referrals. So that's why it's so important to find a client that you connect with. And unfortunately on Upwork and Fiverr, you don't have that connection. And freelancing is a person industry. This isn't a tech centric, you want to call it sub industry of software. This is a people centric sub industry or subcategory, freelancing, because so much of what you're doing is person to person. And so much of what you are doing involves soft skills like communication, negotiation, things like of that nature. The tech skills obviously are important too, obviously, but communication and negotiation are huge. And when you do find that one person who really vibes with you, you do find a client where it's like you get each other and you're helping that client solve their problems and that client realizes it, keep that person close, because not only are they going to pay you, not only do they respect you, they're going to leave good reviews. They're going to tell their friends and family. And what happens when that happens? What happens when that happens is that they're going to be sending people your way. So how humanity works, we tend to associate with people who are on our level. And if you get a high quality client, they're associating with other potential high quality clients, and they'll just keep coming your way. So eventually you won't even have to put the word out. If you keep freelancing, you're going to be having work. I've never advertised. I've never spent a penny on advertising. Take it back. I probably had a few, probably a $10, $15 ad here, not Google ads or anything, but I mean, I probably spent a few bucks on it. But as far as like traditional advertising, the best clients are in my network, and they come back to me for more projects, or they send other people they know my way. Now that can work in a negative way, because if you work with someone you're not vibing with, who doesn't want to pay you, but yet got their product, they're going to be leaving you bad reviews, but also talking to their people who may or may not come to you for work. And, you know, because people do associate with their tier, with their social strata, dealing with low quality clients can really ruin your day, week, month, or life. So thanks for clarifying your situation. I do think it's doable, but don't discount the people who you're going to be surrounded with when you move. Thanks for the question. Let's see. Yano says, I'm really drawn to upstate New York. Anyone from there? Dr. Candice worked upstate. I know she was working out at was it a healthcare startup? Coder B says, my goal is to move to Thailand. People are so nice there. I've never been to Thailand, but I have been to Vietnam, and I loved it. I got wildly sick, but aside from that, it was just so awesome. I'm a total foodie, and so are the Vietnamese people. They love, at least in Ho Chi Minh City, AKA Saigon, love to eat. It's continuous. It's continuous. Food, drinks, everywhere. Don't drink the water if you're from the States. Don't eat the ice cubes. Pro tip on RealToughCandy. Let's go to the comments. Developers, thanks for tuning in. If you're just joining us, we are talking about everything about code. We're talking about work from home. We're talking about cats. We're talking about freelancing. It's anything goes on the Fish Fry Friday for software developers. Code is spoken here. It's a melange, a grab bag of topics. And yeah, enjoy the aquarium. Let's see, Code Zero, GTD, RTC can appreciate the fact I grew up in Anoka County. Stand up, Anoka County, stand up. Elk River, is that in Anoka County? I love their goodwill. Rebecca says, I just read that because the virus here hasn't been a murder in Miami in weeks. There's some silver lining to it. GTD says, I don't think RTC likes Florida. No, I hate it, can't stand it. I recommend it to no one, just kidding. I just get so misty-eyed thinking about that. Everyone has their favorite state where they have great memories. And I have great memories of Florida. If I would have, see, the thing is, when you visit a state, there's always more pleasant memories than if you live there. If I like live there, if I was only, let me clarify, I lived there for like 4 months. So it was really an extended visit. Some might call it living there. I mean, I guess technically I did live there, but as far as like hunkering down and like starting a career, no. If I would have been there for like a year or two, I would have had some problems, I'm sure. But because I was there and was able to maximize my time there and just like take it at a leisurely pace at the same time, love it. And I just love the aesthetic, the 1950s coral, like just the way the houses are built. They don't have basements. Like that's another thing I learned about Southerners. Southerners don't have basements. You learn a thing every week living this life, I tell you. Too much USA here, Altix. Shout out to Oxford, UK. Okay, fair enough. Ruben, what's up? Hi. Candace says doesn't miss the cold in Albany. Yeah, upstate New York is pretty, but Andrew says coming from Seattle, upstate is boring and lifeless as all get out. So I've only been through upstate once. It was honestly, it was pretty, but it was kind of the standard rural experience. And then you get to like the Rust Belt cities like Buffalo, Albany. Well, Albany isn't really Rust Belt, but for sure Buffalo. And then just driving, just take the Rust Belt all the way to Chicago. So you have Buffalo, Erie, Pennsylvania. Has anyone ever been to Erie, Pennsylvania? It's really depressing, dude. Some of these Rust Belt cities, and it's no shade thrown at them. It's really not. It's just our manufacturing infrastructure are just destroyed. It's destroyed. The downtowns are destroyed. The people are despondent. It's depressing to see. Cleveland, Toledo, all these cities that are on a Great Lake between Chicago and what, Rochester? I don't know, I'm getting my cities confused. It's cool to explore, but they're definitely, they ain't what they used to be. Let's go to the comments here. Code Zero says basement's no good in Florida unless you need an indoor pool. Indeed. Tasha says, I'm from just outside Oxford, but I live in Florida. That's what's up. What are your thoughts on Boise, Idaho's tech scene? Is there a tech scene? Is there a tech scene in Boise, Idaho? Speak to me. What Midnight Sun, what are your thoughts of Boise, Idaho's tech scene? Boise, now I know we're getting kind of American centric here, but hear me out, my international viewers, because no doubt you have had a scenario in your country as well, no doubt. So California is very expensive. It's also not a very good place for small business owners. So there's been an exodus. And where do these Californians go? They go to Texas and they go to Idaho. And they have been flooding the cities in Idaho, which, as you can imagine, there aren't that many cities to speak of, and Boise is one of them. So aside from the cultural clash of Californians inviting themselves and settling down in Boise, apparently there is a tech scene there. Tell me more. Is it because of the California soul, the California influx? Let me know. Does anyone live in Florida? I got Florida on my mind. Does anyone live in Idaho right now? What can they add with the tech scene in Idaho? More people moving to Idaho. Yep. Zane Chandy says, Floridian resident here. The thing about Florida is that it's hard to focus because it isn't really a competitive, fast-paced economy, at least where I live in Port St. Lucie. Yeah, and the sunshine tax, right? Like everyone wants to go there to enjoy the sunshine, but you don't get paid much in Florida. Like the tech jobs, especially the tech jobs that I've seen, they're there, but it's like, you know, starting salary 35K, or I've seen some with like 15, 16 bucks an hour. Florida is not that cheap to live in, especially if you're like on the Gulf Coast or any of the coasts. Interior Florida, okay, maybe. But even still, that sunshine tax of Florida is a real thing. You got to pay to live there, man. You want that vitamin D, you got to pay for it. Midnight Sun says Boise is supposed to be the new Portland. Now that Portland is nearly as expensive as Seattle. Yeah, I didn't know that, but that's interesting, and it's not surprising. These coastal cities are just completely, if you thought the middle class had been destroyed 10 years ago, check into 2020 and look at Seattle, Portland, any place in California, as well as New York City, that is, forget it. There's no such thing as middle class. And going to tie this into software development, I've mentioned this so many times on this channel and people are fatigued of hearing about it, but I just want to repeat it. There is a software developer who went to Twitter to tell the world, hey, I'm a software dev, I make 6 figures, and I'm freaking broke in San Francisco. What's the solution to that? And when you're in a city like San Francisco, where the wealth gap is so apparent, there's just a huge gap. You have, this is the dystopian reality of San Francisco. So you have a huge homeless population that are living outside. They are, many of them suffer from mental illness, and as they're also using drugs, many of them, like heroin and opioids and other things aside from pot. Open defecation, needles everywhere. These are dangerous cities. San Francisco is a dangerous city. And unfortunately, when you're intoxicated and you don't know what reality is and you do some very bad things, it's not safe. It's just not safe. So we have a lot of people who are in a very bad situation. And then we have $1 million, $4 million condos. Where's the middle? It's not there. San Francisco is a city for the very rich. And unfortunately, it's so evident that the average person can't live there. You can't live on 6 figures? That's just not right. That's just not right. And so we're seeing this type of situation. Portland also is expensive. There's a lot, there's the homeless issue in Portland is also very bad. And it's also very expensive. And as software developers, with our first jobs, how do you take a job at $60,000 a year in Portland? How do you take a job $60,000 in San Francisco? You couldn't. You'd be a fool to take it for 60K. You'd be a fool to take it for 85 in San Francisco, unless you're taking what do they call it? The BART, the rapid transit system or whatever, 2 hours away, which is what some people do. They live in these bedroom communities 2 hours away and like, I don't know, somewhere between San Francisco and Sacramento. I have no idea how they do it, but they're commuting 2-3 hours one way. Something about that isn't right. Something about that is not right. I don't even know how I got on this topic. That's what it was, going to Boise. So what is happening is that people who are making this money still can't afford it. They still can't afford to live in San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, maybe even LA. So they go to Boise, where there already are Californians established. They go to Texas, where Austin and other places. Texas is a huge state. I lived there too. I did live there. I lived there for like almost 2 years. It's a great state for doing business. It's a great state for entrepreneurs. If you are an aspiring entrepreneur and want to do this code thing while doing your own business, and you don't know what state to choose, investigate Texas. I'm not recommending it. I'm just saying investigate it. Awesome state for business. I did a lot. That's where I got into real estate. That's where I got into tech. That's where I got into flipping merchandise. Holy smokes. I was like this. That's where I got into motorcycle riding. I got my first motorcycle in Houston, Texas. It's a different country in Texas. It is a different world. And it's not for everyone. It's too darn hot for me. And I just couldn't find my crew. You know what I mean? I couldn't find my peeps. It just wasn't the state for me. But yeah, I think this could be something we're seeing too. Hot tech hotspots bubbling up in places you wouldn't imagine, at least in the States. I can't speak for other countries, but I know that London is impossible to live in if you're a normal person. I know that. So I wonder if that is a situation we're seeing in other countries too, like the UK, where we're going to see some more tech hubs just popping up in rural areas where you wouldn't have imagined. Like, people from the UK, stand up and let me know, what are your tech hubs? And do you see different hubs popping up? And what do your techies live? Do they live in the cities they work in? Because that's something we see in the States, people commuting 2.5 hours one way. You couldn't pay me $100 an hour, $200 an hour to do that. That is just absolute lunacy in my opinion. Crazy. King says, Texas is really growing, especially Austin. Yeah, blowing up. It's blowing up right now. Curtis Davis lived in Santa Cruz, visited San Fran on the weekend, $2 million homes. GTD says, I lived in Detroit for two years. I regretted it. I moved ASAP. It was notorious for drugs, crime, gang shootings, etc. Your mileage may vary. That's interesting. Detroit, I was actually a couple of years back. This was like 6-7 years ago. I was getting into real estate and I was going to invest in some properties on the west side and the east side. It never went through, but the prospect of being able to buy a house for $500 or $1,000 and like $5,000 in back taxes was just like, what? And it's like, these houses are $4,000 and $5,000 and they're just about move-in ready. If you got a dumpster, did some carpet cleaning. Now, granted, others are totally beyond repair, but Detroit is such an interesting city, gorgeous architecture. The downtown area, from my understanding, is making a comeback. But it's decades, it's recovering from decades of jobs outgoing and decades of neglect. And I know Donovan is in the Detroit area, and he does so much work for volunteering for people who are interested in code, or if their parents are learning and their kids interested in code. And it's awesome. It's even in a place where you wouldn't think would be like a tech place. A lot of places in the Midwest, you don't think Minneapolis would be a tech place. It's a huge tech place. It's huge. And in Detroit, they have some pretty big companies downtown. They have what is it? Blue Cross Blue Shield. I could be wrong. It's some insurance thing. But they're pockets of growth in these cities that have been off the radar for some time. Minneapolis is not on anyone's radar that I know of, but we have so many Fortune 500s here. 3M, Best Buy, Target, General Mills. We have a lot of healthcare, device manufacturers. Well, at least one big one. I don't know about a lot, but we have one big one. Insurance companies. We have a really diverse economy here in the Minneapolis area, the Twin Cities area, at least. So that makes for a lot of different diverse tech jobs. Tons of too. You wouldn't know. You wouldn't even think. But Minneapolis has always been a tech city, in my opinion. And we have the University of Minnesota, which Douglas Crockford, we have some luminaries there. Also Rochester, Minnesota, huge IBM. That's where the AS400 was developed, if I'm not mistaken. Or at least some big thing was developed there. I can't remember. But Rochester, their IBM location of Rochester is huge. Altix says, my brother lives and works in central London. His rent is almost as much as my monthly wage. Yeah, it's impossible. I don't know, like, who are these people? Because London is a huge city, right? Like, it's huge, it's international. How do people, like, what do people do? Not everyone there is a doctor or a doctor or a lawyer. That's what I don't get. Is everyone just living like 15 to a house? Sammy says London is crazy. Manchester and Birmingham are big hubs, but similar disadvantages to London. Interesting. Midnight Sun says, like Boise, Spokane is also growing in tech. No corporate or personal income tax in Washington state. Nice. Paid relocation for mid-level devs. Rebecca, that's right. Rebecca had mentioned she was in St. Louis the other day. She was sharing a story about our recruiters, how they're just like cold calling from a script in St. Louis. She said, Detroit reminds me of St. Louis, good and bad. St. Louis being the smaller sibling. So like I said, I'm weird. St. Louis is a great place if you want affordability. They do have a tech scene too. Yeah. St. Louis, I've never actually been to St. Louis. That's another city that is off the radar for most people. I was working with a nonprofit out of St. Louis a couple years back. I never visited their office, but yeah, it's some of these, it's going to be interesting to see. This is what is so interesting to me from a public policy standpoint, because my master's is in public policy. And so that's where one of my interests are. And from just a general life observation. There are a lot of cities in this country that have been totally off the radar for decades, especially in the Midwest. In the South too, though, I mean, even in some of these Western states and Eastern states, a lot of cities just totally off the radar. But what people are going to find real quick is that you can't live off even six figures in Seattle, in Portland. My theory is that these slept-on cities, people are going to be relocating to cities, and then we're gonna have some more problems because gentrification always brings its own set of problems. But we're also going to see some more tech, some miniature tech hubs. We'll say sub-hubs. Can we say sub-hubs pop up in cities we wouldn't have imagined? That's my theory. That's my theory. I could be totally wrong. We could continue to see a concentration of power in the Silicon whatever. I hope not. It would be nice to see some diversification of tech talent across this country and going for other countries too. For like centralized tech hubs in these different countries, to see that this can be replicated, this infrastructure, this new way of doing things can be replicated in smaller cities and smaller towns, so that people aren't forced to like pack up, move off the farm and move to San Francisco. Now, fortunately, tech is so ubiquitous, no one has to do that, but you guys know what I'm saying. It'll be interesting in the next 10 to 15 years for sure, who rises up and what people are saying about cities that were formerly just like no-goes for a lot of people. Caitlin had a comment, born and raised in Southeast Michigan until I moved to San Antonio for a job offer. Detroit has great prospects, but it has its issues. Good to see downtown Detroit make a comeback. Yeah. Vuthi says, wow, Candy is from MN. Don't you know, Vuthi? Surprised no one asked me to do a impersonation of being from Minnesota. When I was in the military, oh my gosh, people found out I was from Minnesota. They're like, ha, Fargo, don't you know? Oh, never heard that one before. Y'all are lame. Like, when people would just like, that's the first thing out of their mouths. So ignorant. Ugh. Anyways, that's a digression. Sammy says, I lived in South London with my ex in one room of a shared house in 2018. Glad I got out, or 2016. King says, Des Moines, Iowa, coming up. King, I was in Des Moines last fall. Loved it. It's like 200 some thousand people. It actually, that's another example of a city that's like, oh, it's just corn, it's just ethanol, not worth my time. Listen, these cities of 200, 300,000 people, they got stuff going on. The worst you can do is visit it and say it sucks. But if you have a couple of days to explore these cities, check it out. Check it out. It's affordable. There's stuff to do. It's definitely not for everyone. I'm not endorsing people. I'm not saying, okay, everyone drop everything, move to Des Moines. But if you live in like, if you're in Chicago trying to get out of the rent and the problems that Chicago has, check out some of these other cities, Minneapolis, Indianapolis, frickin' Dayton, maybe not Dayton. What's the big one? Where's Craig Wadding living right now? Columbus? I think Columbus has like 600,000 people. It's a huge city. And that goes for other people in international locations too. If you're able to get out for a weekend and explore these other places that have lower costs of living, it's definitely worth it. The algorithm is not going to suggest these places. There's many things the algorithm does for us, but it's one thing, it doesn't open our minds. So definitely check it out. Rebecca says, I visited London and it's awesome, but extremely expensive. My Minnesota accent sounds like a Canadian. Well, that's because we just got to look out our window and see Canada. Code 0. Can't you tell by the accent? I lost mine. Rebecca says, I totally agree with you about Detroit. I'm an architecture and art geek, and I love the DIA Heidelberg project. Yo, the Detroit Institute of Art is on my list. I am so glad that place still exists. I would seriously love to visit it. It has some amazing works of art there. There's just so many gems and beautiful just designs in the entire city. Amazing. Back in the day, in the 60s, the 50s, They call Detroit the Paris of the West. I don't think people realize this was like the city. And we're seeing it come back with its downtown rejuvenations. And I hope they continue to, because there's just so many beautiful things. Holy smokes, Donovan checking in. He's setting the record straight. In Detroit, we've got LinkedIn, Twitter, Google, Quicken Loans, yeah, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Ford, etc. Yeah. Let's see. Jeff says, if you had to make a living online coding with no in-person interaction with customers or employers, what would your strategy be? Jeff, that's another tough question. You've got some good questions today, but these are tough ones. If you had to make a living online coding with no in-person interaction with customers or employers, what would your strategy be? I'd have to get back to you on that. That's a really good question. My first instinct was to do open source work and ask for donations, but it'd have to be like a really banging project. My second idea that popped into my head was designing templates and themes for WordPress, and that's a hard gig to make money with. Yeah, that's a tough question. That's a really good one though. If you're able to join the next live stream, ask me or super chat me. So I'm sure to see it. Let's see. Zane Chandy says, I think the best places to relocate to within the next few years are cities where tech is growing fast while living costs are low. How do you balance that? How do you balance that? Because once the software set, because generally speaking, we're the higher income bracket, if not the first year, okay, but generally, you know, by your third or fourth year, you're doing pretty good by your third or fourth year in this industry. So how do we get these jobs rolling without raising the cost of living? How do we balance that? Do we have any armchair economists in the chat? These are questions I really love thinking about because I love geography. I love economics, but I'm not an economicist. I'm not an economist, and I'm not a geographer, but I love both of them. And I love thinking about just the public policy, just the policies of how these things work, and you know, who sets the rules? How does inflation work? When does inflation start affecting people? When do people, or maybe rather, when do people start noticing inflation? And how do our roles as software developers come into play? Can software solve this problem? I just love thinking about those questions. Fish Fry Friday, anything goes. What's up, Ian? Thanks for checking in. Ian Bayless, a faithful subscriber and patron. He says you could do niche sites or make games. Good idea. As far as Jeff's question, what to do if you don't want to talk to anybody or interact with anyone. Let's see. Curtis Davis says, Austin blowing up, but homes and apartments overpriced, visited last fall. Sammy says the solution is remote work within the same country. Great point, Sammy. Talking about going back to that remote work thing, see, here's the thing. For most junior developers, I don't think remote first is gonna work for a lot of them. But once you've been in for a year, there is no reason we cannot have a completely or almost complete remote workforce. I mean, going to a centralized location is one of the most inefficient things you can do as an employee. Silly meetings, rumors, dumb chain emails that are funny, the temptation to just get distracted at any which way. Now, granted, getting distracted at home is also an issue, but when you have peers right next to you, especially ones that you get along with, it's easier to engage in hijinks and time wasting. Even people who are there to work. Like, I consider myself a pretty dedicated worker and pretty good worker. I've always been the best in my field when I've stuck with a career. Unfortunately, it's never been more than a few years. But when that did happen, I've always been a top performer. But even with that, the office was a complete waste of time. So I'm glad you mentioned that. This remote work thing is going to come into play too. Rick says remote working would balance it out a bit. Yeah, indeed. Promote remote working. I'm trying, man. I'm trying to promote it, but most juniors can't handle it. They just they need that in person. Let me rewind. I empathize. I completely 100% am on newbies' side. That's why I do this channel. I'm here for them. I promote them. I want them to succeed. But even myself as a junior, there is no way I would have been able to handle a remote position with what I knew and what I was expected to do. Absolutely not. Impossible. And it really comes down to your employer as well and what they're having you do. A lot of the code that you work with, you need to be on site, especially if part of your job involves like DevOps stuff. If they've designated you the go-to DevOps person, which I was doing DevOps at my enterprise job, so I had to be there in case the server went down. There is always something that, oh my gosh, we had dogs running around. We had kids playing in the server room. We had spouses walking around and like babysitting kind of, and then walking off and going to work. There were unattended children. It was a terrible working environment, but we had to be there because that was the company. But I don't know what I was getting at. Yeah, most juniors need to be in person, but after like 6 months, if they can prove that they don't need that supervision, they can handle it by themselves or seek help efficiently when they're working from home, I'm all about it. It would be so great. And more companies are waking up to it. Let's go to the comments. Candace says, I work in one state and live in the other. New York City cost of living is nuts. Totally. Yeah. There's no way the average person could afford to live in New York City. My one of my relatives lives in Brooklyn. And when I found out what she does, so Brooklyn is like, it's like the new hipster paradise, apparently. I don't know what the cost of living is like in Brooklyn, but apparently she got into tech like 8 years ago, and she's been able to like pay her way for everything, she's doing some kind of blog thing. I don't know. That's all the information my relatives gave me about this situation. And relative, if you're watching, fill me in on what you're actually doing. She's doing something with a blog and she's making bank living in Brooklyn. But I'm like, man, how much is her blog making? Because I mean, that's another case of like, from my understanding, 6 figures is still cutting it close if you live in Brooklyn. It used to be affordable. It used to be a mix of different socioeconomic tiers. But the whole New York City and boroughs, man, pricey. There's no middle class. It's Jeed says, what's a good amount of time to work in the office before looking for remote work? Great question. I would say 3 months. That's just general. That's just me generally throwing it out there. But on an individual basis, you should start thinking about remote work when the majority of what you do, you can do without assistance. Because you will be able to find help when you're working remotely, but it's not going to be as quick. And so your production is going to go down and your output is going to go down, and that's not going to look good when your company or your boss is looking at your output for that day. If you're able to do most tasks at your job by yourself or with little supervision, that signifies that you're a pretty good candidate for working remotely. If a lot of your day is spent asking for help, or you're not really sure on why this code is doing what, or various procedures at your job, you're not really comfortable with that, then you should be at the job. If you are an employee who needs supervision, you're not ready for working from home. And that's the biggest thing with new developers. A lot of newbies just, it's their first job and the company's new, their work is new, everything they're doing is new. So having that management right in front of you helps establish those boundaries, and it helps really spell out what's expected of you. You don't want to get fired your 3rd month on the job for doing something you didn't even know was a problem. You know what I'm saying? You want those things, you want the expectations spelled out at work where you can write things down and you can see your boss. When I was working enterprise, I wrote down everything. as a cover my butt, as a CYA in case something went wrong. And also so I could go home and just absorb everything my senior told me, everything my bosses told me. There's no way I could have done that working from home. You're going to learn a lot those 3 months. And I say 3 months, I mean, it might take you 2 weeks. I can't say for sure, but I think generally a couple months on the job. And if you're doing good at that point, I think you should be good to go with remote. Ian Bayless says, a friend of mine got a job in New York City for $200,000, but commuted from Philadelphia to avoid living there. It was a 2-hour ride. Dude, I couldn't do that. I could not do that, but $200K, man, that's a pretty decent salary. If you could find some way to be creative, like on that 2-hour commute, if you're like listening to a podcast, or if you could fall asleep. See, I could never nap in like a public place, whether it's a bus station or a train ride, any type of place. The only place I'm falling asleep is in the privacy of my own home. But if you can feel comfortable taking a nap on the way to work for 2 hours for $200K, it might be worth the sacrifice. It comes down to the personal sacrifice, what people can tolerate for sacrificing that. I couldn't do a 2-hour commute one way. I can't. I just can't. It's a nice salary though. GTD says, gotta go, nice stream. Thanks GTD for tuning in, and thanks for your support. Rebecca says, Brooklyn, I hear, is getting as bad as Manhattan when it comes to rent. Yeah, I mean, these coastal cities are not safe. Maybe if you live with like a bunch of people, but just living normally, the normal, there is a new normal as far as quality of life in at least in this country. There's been such a change. It's such a dramatic change too. To think that $100,000 a year just isn't cutting it in some of these coastal cities. It's crazy. Whereas, you know, you come to the Midwest, you come to Des Moines, Minneapolis, like $100,000 will get you pretty far. It goes a long more ways. Your dollar goes longer. How can I say this? $100,000 is beneficial in the Midwest. Whereas in San Francisco, you're not doing so hot. It's crazy. Developers, it's 6:25. Thanks for joining in for Fish Fry Fridays on the RealToughCandy Network. This has been, again, a great stream. So fun. We talk about it all on the Fish Fry Friday. It's community driven. There's no set topic. Today we talked about locations, working from home, remote work as a junior developer. We also talked a little bit about freelancing. We talked about learning your second language way early in the stream. That was a good question too. We got some awesome super chats and some people leveling up. Dr. Candace became a YouTube channel member during the stream. Thanks, Candace, for your support. You're one of the small percentage that hit that, unlock the feature, I guess. I don't know. I can't talk. I just can't. Thanks for your support, Candace. Also, Donovan with the super chat. Had a great time with you guys. Love talking about this stuff. There's so much to talk about with it. Rebecca giving her Midwest report, the St. Louis report, and everyone else, my overseas friends, sharing their cities, their remote work, all that stuff. Developers, we may or may not do a live stream tomorrow. I might have a premiere, but I'm going to go for it. We are doing a live stream or premiere every day until we #flatten the curve here, which apparently we have, not state by state though. So I'm going to be pulling back on the live streams pretty soon. So hope you've enjoyed them while they've lasted. I know I have. This is a Minnesota goodbye. As I've explained to you, 5 seconds is actually 10 minutes. So at this point, I will say, take it easy. It's always fun chatting with you all, developers. Have fun this weekend. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Peace out, if I can find it. Wait, someone sent me a super chat. James Shackelford. James, just when I was going to peace out. Difference is there's more opportunities to make 6 figures in the coastal cities than the Midwest. That is true. James, that is very true. Thanks for the super chat. And we will see you in the next stream if I can figure out how to end this dadgum thing. Here we go. Bye, developers.